Hello everyone, it's Sarah, Painter Creator. So this is just a little bit of a tutorial around water control. So I've just got some normal A4 paper taped to the board, and it's come after we've been doing our little online Zoom paints. These happen roughly every couple of weeks. If you'd like to get involved, they're free, for just a contribution if you have them. And this is the sort of thing this time that we've been painting, and it's just to help us control and get these soft but harder and harder edges. So that's the purpose of this. So I'm just going to look at this brand new, well, I've used it once, but brand new palette. It's ceramic. So I'm just going to grab my spritzer bottle, give my paints a little bit of a spritz because I've had a rest since this morning's Zoom session. So I'm just using my Cotman watercolour set with a few additions, and I'm just going to spritz my paper in a little spritzer bottle, yeah, and then I'm just going to take a damp mop brush and just rub that water into the paper. So this is the first part really, because I'm wanting my paper to be damp, not wet through. I'm not going to tilt the board and let it run, but it does allow me then to put a little bit of a backwash on. So I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue onto my nice new palette, add some water. So as you can see here, we've got quite a lot of water. So in my mop brush, that will hold most of that. But if I run it along the palette edge, you can see that it can take some of the paint away. So all that's come out, and that will help me when I'm just putting a backwash on. Remember, I've got water already on here, so to just do a graded wash, I'm just going to get some clean water now and just work up horizontally. Clean water on my brush and just working up a bit more blue out of my palette, work it down, and I've got a fairly even backwash that will do. Okay, so the key now is to make sure that what you are take that hair off, there we go, what you are doing, that your brush has less water moisture than the paper, because of runbacks and the like. So I'm just going to do some gamboge yellow, got some kitty glitter there, a touch of that blue into there to make a really nice light green, spring green. It's very similar to Sap Green, and I'm just going to do a tree shape. Hello. So that has gone on damp into damp, and so you can see the ultramarine is a heavier colour, so it separates a little bit, and the new gamboge is bright, and it makes that really nice bright contrast with it. So I'm going to add some red light into here and a little bit of that ultramarine. So it's still quite a light wash. I'm just moving so the paper is still damp, and I can dab onto the paper, creating a little bit of a contrast. Again, you can see the new gamboge is granulated out. I personally really like that. Some people don't. But you can get, because there's not masses of water on the brush, you can get the defined brush strokes are starting to be able to show. If I add some cerulean blue into here, change the colour again. And I can do some bigger tones. So this paper is still damp, you can tell it's wobbling. So some of what I'm doing is mixing the colour that's on my brush with the colour that is underneath. And then some of what I'm doing is creating just that colour, leaving a little bit of gaps here and there. For the shape of the tree. So I'm going to mix a darker colour now. So I'm going to go for a little bit of sap green into this ultramarine, a bit more ultramarine in there. So if I went back into here, this is drying rapidly, so I can blend it in to the damp wash, so it has to not run in your palette, so you can just blend it in with your dabs of your brush, really light on your brush end, starting to build those tones up in the shape of the tree. And because this is near enough dry now, or it's drier, the brush strokes stand out on it. So I'm going to add some burnt sienna into here. So it's making, so I've not added any more water. And a lot of what we do is around about water control, the pressure of the brush. And remember, take the excess out on a paper towel if you think you've got too much in your brush. Either run it off the side, or that's how much I've got in this. And just, it's almost dry as the brush. So I'm just going to add a little bit of indigo, so straight from the palette, indigo in, mix it in. So that's going wet in wet, because that's going where that previous once it's drier, you can get some drier leaf marks on. Building up that bough. So I've now got a very green. I'm just going to add a little bit of Paynes grey into that green, and a bit of ultramarine, and then maybe a touch of Sap Green, because that's what the green was that I used before. So that's making a darker toned green. Just to like darken this. So I'm just trying to darken the dark parts, just to add a little bit of shape. So I think I'm done there. So I've washed my brush out. The thing I do is I run it along the edge, and then I dab it on the paper towel to take some of the water off, so I've not got too much water in my brush. I'm actually going to swap and do exactly the same with my medium-sized mop brush. And I'm just going to mix a brown. So this is burnt umber. So just to darken it a little bit, I'm going to add some ultramarine. Oops, that's a lot of ultramarine. Got very dark brown there. That will do for my dark. Put a bit of that in there. There we go. Mid-tone dark. So again, just scrape the side off there and touch on paper towel. So this is nearly dry to the touch. Obviously it's not in the tree. So let's just put a little bit of a tree trunk on. So tree trunks are actually quite small compared to the canopies. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of Sap Green. So I'm just laying that run into the base of the tree. So this has got a hard line because it's near enough dry. So not too much water in the mix, and we've got a fairly so to soften that, you just wash your brush, take the water out, and then you can soften that bottom line, and that will just soften some of those harder edges. Okay, that one's now drying. You can see this is drying, so I'm going to use some of this dark colour just to drop in along the shadow edge. Between that trunk branch join and onto here. I'm just going to pick up my number 4 round brush and pop on some of the little branches through the tree gaps. I've got a really tiny under 0 brush. And just like if you're doing trees in the distance, if you want a branch to look like it's further away, all you need to do is put more water into the mix, and then you have a branch that's coming forward like this one, and then a branch in the background like those in the background. So it's a nice way of just having branches at the back. You see there was a drip of water on the brush while I was looking. So we've made a tree with some grass across the bottom. I'm going to change this into a bluebell field. So I'm going to take some cobalt blue because they are quite blue, our bluebells. Some alizarin crimson, see what we get. A bit more alizarin crimson than that. Need a bit more vibrancy of blue, I think, in there. I'm going to add a little bit of the darks and purple. Just to put a bit more blue in. It's a bit like alchemy mixing. So I get the colour that I want. Needs to be a bit more blue. Add a little bit of ultramarine, see if that'll blue it up a bit. Oh, that's better. A bit more ultramarine in. Okay, so I'm still on my... So I'm going to pick up my number 4 round brush. This is dry, so we're going to end up with harder edges. I want some, I've still got this green colour on my palette, which is fine. So I want to start with this sort of more distant colour. Purple, knock it out on a paper towel, and then I'm just going to drop in some bit of random bluebelly colour. They sort of grow in clumps, don't they, bluebells? So because I'm working on dry paper, I'll just pick some more paint up. I'm just going to tap it on my paper towel. Then it's easy, so it's easier to get that harder blob. It doesn't blend in. So you get that sense of something's there. I can just add a bit more alizarin crimson into here to get a pinkier tone. I've not added any more water. That's why it's important to keep your your paints topped up. Use your spritzer bottle, keep your paints liquid and woken up. So I've added some more alizarin crimson, and if I go back into a place that's wet, it just spreads and melts and mixes on the paper. But if I go in with a place that's dry, it then stands by itself. I'm hoping that you will be able to see the difference on the on this painting, a quick little painting. So now I'm going to just grab my middle-sized mop brush, a bit of this green. I've just dropped a bit more water into there to make the green. It's still sort of fairly creamy. touch it on the paper towel, take the excess water out, and then we're just going to add another layer of leaves. So on the background leaves, I'm just touching like we did on the tree, and then the foreground leaves on dry paper so they stand by themselves a bit more. Just going to add a little bit of yellow gamboge into there just for a bit of variety under the tree. So this is dry, so I can put another layer on top. And just building up the grass. So we're coming nearer, so I'm going to use my deeper, more defined colour. The colour that goes onto the grass area will merge in. The colour on the dry paper will stay. So back in with my green, a little mop brush. If I touch there, it will blend in. If I leave it alone, it won't. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow into the mix. Just building up the grasses. So these are sort of mid-ground, really. So the bottom paper is dry. So I'm going to mix a thicker, deeper sap green colour with a little bit of ultramarine in to make a darker green, but it's quite thick. It's mainly paint, and I'm just distressing my brush. There's no extra water in my brush. So I'm just building up that sort of idea of the foreground now. Where it's damp, it will just soften in. And where it's dry like the foreground is, it will just leave your brush strokes, but your brush must be fairly dry. really versatile way. Building up that grassland, bits of shrubbery. And there we are, really quick paint. So I'm just going to put even more ultramarine in here. So I'll put more water into this mix. Ultramarine, so it's really dark, soft brush. You can see how much paint's in there. There's my little rigger brush. There you are. So, little rigger brush going in. Take the excess off, because otherwise you're going to get big blobs. And you can just do some foreground grasses. And there we go, a little tree. I think I might go back to my big mop brush actually. Yeah. Brighter, more concentrated. Bigger, bolder, better. And because it's me, I'm going to put a bird on where that blob is. So I just picked up some Paynes grey. Control it on the paper towel. Push it back. Load that wash. Want it darker. Just darken the underside of this trunk a little bit with that black while it's there, that Paynes grey. Let it run just down that shadow side a bit more. it across. There we go. So I hope you've enjoyed that. That was real time. I've not paused apart from when hubby came in, but I've not paused or anything. And it just shows how you can get these separate bits, but you must let the paper dry, and you must sort of just work through in order to get this lovely blending on. Ultramarine's beautiful as a mixer. So have fun. Hope you have enjoyed that one, and catch you soon. Oh, sorry, we were a bit wonky.